Hi, this is James. Thanks for joining me on this special tutorial where we focus on the bubble chart. You find it on two of the tools on myfinalytics, both Recovery Roadmap and Customer Insight. Let me show you what I mean. These bubble charts are at the center of both of these tools. Here you see the income and expenses chart. I want to get you familiar with these bubble charts so you understand how they work and the information they provide you. So first, I'm just going to walk you around the chart itself and how to make it work for you. Both of them are laid out the same way. The first thing I want you to notice is on the right-hand side, you have a number of controls. Every time you start it, it's going to be set for pan. It's also going to be set for hover. If you look closely, you see these little blue lines that tell you what setting is on. The pan setting means you can take your cursor and move around the chart. This is going to be helpful. Right now you're seeing demonstration data and the bubbles are laid out a certain way. Everybody who uses myfinalytics is going to have a different chart. So it depends on how many transactions you have. You could have quite a lot on this chart and it can start to look very crowded. You want to start with the pan tool and kind of move it around to get to a place where you want to look deeper. Now when you want to look deeper, you have two options. You have two zoom buttons. The first one is the box zoom and the second one is the wheel zoom. The box zoom means you take your cursor and you create the little box, and now what you're seeing is just what was in that box. If you want to do this again, you can. So here I see 3 dots in a row. I want to look a little bit closer at them. I'm going to make this box just tight like that. Now I have all this information on these 3 dots. I can look at the scale below to get the sense of the numbers. I can also hover and get the specific details. It's easier to do the hover when you have less dots on the screen. So that's why I recommend that everybody zoom to get there. Remember, this is the part that turns on that hover feature. So if you have your cursor on a dot and nothing's happening, remember to go down here. You have another zoom option here, which is the wheel zoom. So I'm going to turn off the box zoom, turn this on, and now with the little wheel on your cursor, you can actually control the zooming. Some people find this more useful, so it's also a little bit fun to make all your dots dance. Now, when you're done doing that and you want to get back to where you start, you simply reset. Now, both of your charts on the two different tools work the same way. The more you use this, the more it's going to become secondhand to you. And it is a lot of fun. These are very interactive tools, and they're that way for a reason. Next, I'm going to walk you through the specifics on each tool, and now you understand why it's laid out the way it is. Now I'm going to show you how to use the income and expenses table on Recovery Roadmap. First thing you want to know is that, again, each of the bubbles on the graph is going to be based on your information. So what do you have recorded in your accounting systems? Now this graph shows you a number of things. What it does is it combines all of your sources of income as well as all of your expenses for 2020. That's the first thing. It's going to have a lot of dots in here and it is going to get very crowded. So you are going to want to use the different tools to zoom in and highlight specific line items. Also what this does is this compares what happened in 2020 with 2019. At the left hand side and at the bottom you'll see what it's showing you. So what you see on the left hand is it notes that the scale is the absolute dollar amount for 2020. So this scale here we're showing from 2,000 to 10,000. This actual number is going to change depending on your specific data. The goal of this homepage, where it starts from, is to capture every single data point on one image. Again, you're going to have a different distribution of your bubbles based on what happened. Across the bottom, it takes the actual dollar amount and tells you how much of a change it is from the year before, 2019. So that gives you the scale here. The first thing that I like to do then to really interpret this is to start with that pan, which again you select as this first button, is find where there's the 0. And I take the 0 and I kind of move it to about halfway. So now it's the middle line here. Because remember, at the bottom, we're talking about the percent change from 2019. So now every bubble that's on this side, on the right hand side, means that the number grew. And if it's on the left-hand side, it means that the number went down from the year before. Now, is this a good thing or a bad thing? It depends. Remember, the green is a sale. So what you want, obviously, is to have a lot of greens on this side. And let's hover and find out. So here, it's not really an increase in 2020 versus 2019. What you're actually seeing is a brand new sale, a brand new customer. In this case, it's this customer called The Village. So they did not do any business with this company 2019, but here they made a sale in 2020. And you're seeing the actual dollar amounts as well as the percentage change. So here, that's why that's at the 100% change, because it's brand new. You are going to see declines in from 2019 by hovering and getting at the information on each of these specific customers. Hopefully this brings to mind the reasons why. So what happened with this particular customer? Why did they go down? In this case, the percentage change was 17%. You don't want to see any decline, but that's a reasonable decline. And maybe you didn't even notice it over the course of the year. We come down here, and this one declined 50%. So you probably did notice the fact that this customer did not purchase as much in 2020. Again, think about what happened over the course of the year. Think about what's the story. Where are they now? When was the last time I spoke to this customer? Let's look at the orange dots now that show your expenses. Sometimes it's going to be a little bit trickier to interpret this information. So this is where this chart can come in handy. Again, we've moved around the numbers, as you recall, so that I've got 0 as my midpoint, and everything on the right-hand side is an increase. That meant that bill went up. Everything on the other side is a decrease. Now I've got a lot of bubbles clustered here, so let me do a zoom. Okay, now after doing the zoom, I have some white space and I can read things more clearly. Remember, this was the left-hand side of that starting point. So these were all expenses that went down. So here, the name of this bill was Pioneer Quick Lube, and I reduced the bill quite a lot. So in 2019, I paid $3,700. In 2020, it's down to $920. And now it's a 76% change. Let's look at another one. Citgo, the value again, $4,800 in 2019. Now it's $1,500 in 2020. And this is, again, a very sizable change. So each of these expenses represents work that you did in 2020. And so thinking of these items, are these expenses where maybe I purchased less in 2020 because I did not need that product or that commodity during the year? Or is it something where maybe there's an expense that you normally would want to make, but you've put off a purchase? And then in 2021, maybe it's going to be time to make that purchase that you delayed. In which case, keep in mind with your budget for 2021, you're going to have that additional expense. Now let's go back to that starting point. And from here again, I want to grab or pan, and again move my numbers so the 0 point is in the middle. Let's look at some of these expenses that went up. So these are the ones over here. And so here we have an expense for a law firm. And in 2019 it was $1,300. In 2020 it's $2,400. It's a pretty sizable change. It's 83%. This could be a good thing or a bad thing depending on the context. Again, you will know what happened with your expenses, and so the data should trigger a memory of what happened in your mind. Again, in 2020, a lot of people did cut expenses, but there are times where increasing an expense is a good thing. So if you tried something new with your business, maybe you bought a new product or service, and then therefore you had to buy more inventory. In that case, your inventory would increase, and it would be on this side of the graphic. Perhaps this law firm is providing additional services that supported some new activity. So maybe you had an opportunity to grow in 2020 or to plan for some things. Maybe you had to do some more planning for your business, and that would explain why you use this law firm a little bit more. So in those cases, an increased expense is not always a bad thing. It's not always a losing proposition for you. It may represent increased activity. And that's why you really want to dive into each of these items and see where they stand on this graphic. And that's what's the benefit of using this kind of a tool. Instead of providing a simple list of all these items and expenses, and you can get those reports other ways, here it's interactive. You can dive into it. You can see the relationship of each of these items with each other. And you can again understand the story of what happened with every specific item. Let's reset here. Your takeaway is that when you start with this bubble chart, it's going to show you every single thing for the year. So in other words, this is all your activity as a business in 2020. And here it is laid out for you in a way that lets you take hold of it, zoom in, and dive into the specific numbers and what happened over the year. And that's really how you can use the income and expenses table. We're back on the tool dashboard. We just looked at the bubble chart that you find on Recovery Roadmap, which was the income and expenses. And again, that graph shows you all your transactions for the year. Now let's look at Customer Insight. Again, the whole point of this tool is to really dive deeper into what's going on with your customers. So you select that, and that's the central graphic here, the bubble chart that is My Customers. So what's different about this chart is that it only shows the customers, and it gives you trends on the positive and negative changes with the customers. So the color coding is the first thing to notice because the dots are colored differently here than what you just saw on the other chart. Here, because we're only focused on customers, we can use the color to show you in summary form positive and negative changes. So every green meant that the customer sales increased in 2020, and every orange means that the customers declined in 2020. Look again to the guidance on the left-hand side. So this is the total dollar amount for 2020. At the bottom, it's compared to the total dollar amount in 2019. So here across the left and at the bottom, it's total dollar amount. It's not percentage. Again, what this is going to show you when you start and you open it are all the customers, and here it's going to show you for both years. Once again, you're very likely to have a lot of dots, so you are going to want to move around. Again, the scaling is really based on the numbers that are in your accounting system. So the numbers and the distribution of the dots is going to be based on your information. As you open up this tool, it's already set for pan and for hover. So if you just want to hover, you can get the information. And again, you see a very simple breakout. Here, customer is Denver Corporation, sale in 2019, 3,600, 2020, 5,100. Here you also note 11 invoices. So this is a nice piece of information so you can understand the frequency of this customer. This is invoices in 2020. And also the last invoice date. So this is very handy information to put at your fingertips. You have a lot of dots. You're going to want to zoom in and spend your time hovering. And here 12 invoices. And again, their customers, their last one was December of 2020, so at the very end of the year. Let's go back to the starting point. Depending on what happened with your customers, again, you may want to move this around and anchor this. Let's go back to the starting point. Here you see all your dots again, which is all your customers. Do you have an anchor point here? Your zero lines are down in this corner. Let's move them to the center so we can again understand what's going on. So here you've got two zeros. This is a green dot. It means a positive change. So this means that in 2019 there was no purchase. They're a brand new customer for 2020. Why are they near the zero on 2020? It's because they were a small customer. If you look over here, the opposite situation. It was a small customer in 2019 and then they went away completely in 2020. So having the 0 points gives you a sense of the scale. You want to go back to where you started and you see you have a small number of small customers and a lot of your customers are really up here at these extremes. And that's what you want to see. For this case, things are looking good. The more you spend time with each of your customers, the more you're going to understand what happened with them year over year and how your customers relate to each other in terms of generating your overall profit for the year. And this is the best place to start with the Customer Insight tool. Enjoy.